Winter is coming. Prepare for power outages. Hey everybody, this is Michael with Asymmetrical Preparedness. We saw last winter in Texas, right? That severe power outage. Well, if this is going to be as severe a winter as I think it is, Farmer's Almanac and other sources say it is going to be, then we need to prepare. We need to prepare for grid down. How does cold winter, harsh conditions, equate to grid down? Not necessarily. But if we are in a harsh winter and it does go down, wow. The chances for more impact, for increased impact in your life and for more suffering is much greater, correct? Yeah. So, how do you prepare for grid down? Harsh winter, what's the number one thing you think of? Alternate sources of heat. Yes, very, very important. Wood stoves, awesome, highly recommended. Gotta have one. If you're in an apartment somewhere or something like that, things get a lot tougher. But then again, SHTF, anything happens, things are gonna be a lot tougher for people in apartments, in cities, in places like that. If you don't have the ability to do things on your own, like grow your own food, raise your own animals, have a wood stove, things like that, then of course, life will be more difficult in any situation. Plus then you got all the people around you, you get the potential for violence, the potential for looting, rioting, etc. If you're in an apartment, what can you do? Lots of wool blankets, comforters, quilts, etc. Tarps. Tarps are useful for putting up on your windows, your doors, to stop the airflow, and duct tape. Duct tape them all to stop the airflow so you can keep the heat in. And what you want to do is isolate yourself to like one room as much as possible. You can also use these comforters, quilts, wool blankets up on your windows, over your doors, stuff like that to help insulate and keep that heat in. You can also have alternate sources of heat. Now what is that? Well, you could have maybe like a solar charger outside your window, hooked to, maybe it'll run like a heating pad or an electric blanket, or it may power a little small, really small, like electric heater. Although I doubt that, because a lot of those things pull higher amperages. So you'd have to have quite the setup, probably, for that. But in a lot of people's cases, they have a house, they're in a residential neighborhood, suburbia, whatever, maybe rural. Generators, backup power sources, solar, wind, things like that, if you have them. If you don't have them now, more likely it's easier for you to get a generator. Generators are very important. Dual fuel generators are really important. Ones that run off propane, so you can get excuse me, so you can get a propane bottle and run your generator off that. Usually much more efficient much more efficient than gasoline. But have both. That way if you run out of one, you can get the other, or you can have the other. And the ability to do so might increase your chances of finding either gas or propane if there are shortages around because of the power outage. Wood stoves are king. Fireplaces, things like that, you know. Because, I mean, you can burn anything in it. You can burn old pallet wood. You can burn, lumber that you've laying around, although that's a very expensive way to do it right now. Go back in here and just grab some of this dead stuff. Burn it. Is it optimal? Maybe not. But, hey, it'll keep you warm. Like I said, wool blankets, extra, stuff like that. Anything that will insulate the area you're in and keep you warm. And don't forget about the floor. If you're like in a multi-level house, the heat rises, right? So you want to be in the top or upper stories. And if you're in an apartment building, if you're on a higher floor, you're probably a little bit better off. But you got to insulate the ceiling and the floor. Think about things like that. And if you got a lot of glass, like those big apartment windows, sorry, I got a cobweb hanging off my camera. Those big glass windows, you got to insulate those. You also need to prepare your vehicle for getting out of there. Snow chains, extra fuel, recovery devices like tow straps, ratchet straps, high lift jacks, winches, etc. That's a big ball of wax, right? Just like everything in preparedness. It's a big picture. It's a lot of stuff that kind of like you start thinking about this, and then you got to do this to do that, and then this does that, and then they play off of each other, and it snowballs. And it can get overwhelming. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't get prepper burnout. This is the time to stay sharp, to be on top of your game, to prioritize your preparedness. This is another reason why I say make lists, so you can look at what do I have, what are my weaknesses, how do I stay warm. There's also those little foot warmers and hand warmers that you can use. Limited use, yes, I get it, but you can use it. If you have a gas range, meaning your stove top, you turn a knob and you light it, and it's flaming instead of electric, that is awesome. If you got natural gas coming to it, say you're in a town or city or something like that, less optimal because that can get turned off or those lines can freeze, etc. If you have propane and a range top like I do, humongous propane tank, then okay, my electric start won't work on my stove. So what? Light it with a lighter. I hope you guys think about things like that. That's all you got to do. Turn on the burner, light it with a lighter. Very, very simple. And that gives you heat and the ability to cook. Just like a wood stove gives you the ability to heat and to cook. Fireplace, same thing, although not as optimal for cooking as a wood stove with that big metal top to set your pans on. Pans, you got to think about that also. Do you have cast iron? Do you have the ability to cook on a wood stove? You don't necessarily have to have cast iron. If it's a wood stove, you can set a regular pan on it. But if you have a fireplace, or you need to go outside and start a campfire to do this, cast iron, because your lesser pans may not stand up to it. If you don't have it, just use what you got, of course. It'll last well. Fire's fire. I mean, whether it's on a range top or in a campfire. There's just different ways to think about the height above the flame, the heat, stuff like that, so you'll melt your pots and pans. Where was I going with that? I had a thought, and then it left. Campfires. If you have the ability to do so, you can cook outside. There's also gas heaters, propane heaters, things like that. But make sure you read the instructions and follow them. A lot of those have to be used in well-ventilated areas, because you don't want to turn that on, not go to sleep, and not wake up. All right? Yeah. Okay. Clothing, very important. Layering systems, base layers, intermediate layers, shells, or more. That's just an example of like a 3-layer system. You can use 5, 6, 10-layer system. I don't care. Down jackets, those things called puffies, those are really good. I don't care for them because I don't like the way they look. But heavy duty wool lined jackets like Carhartts. Wool lined pants like Carhartt work pants or Riggs. There's different ones that they make out there. Merino wool is awesome. Merino wool socks, good quality boots, gloves. Don't forget your hands. You got to take care of your hands. You can get those snow gloves, snowboarding, skiing gloves anywhere, or just regular snow gloves. And they make layering for those also. They make wool inserts to go inside of them. Make sure you buy the sizing correctly to use the inserts and the other things. Merino wool base layers. Don't forget about your head. I shave my head. So beanies, fleece, merino wool, those kind of things. Knitted beanies, the knitting lets too much air through. But there's a lot of things you can use, a lot of things you wear. Make sure you have jackets. Make sure you have good quality pants. Make sure you have shells. What are shells? Shells are the outer layer that you wear that breaks up the wind, windbreakers, aka, and waterproof. So a thin, lightweight, waterproof shell. That is invaluable. It doesn't have to be bulky. You don't want it bulky. You want it thin, lightweight to go over the stuff that's actually keeping you warm. Don't use your jacket to actually keep you warm. It can be part of the equation, and if you don't need a shell necessarily, you can use your jacket. But have jackets, have layering systems like a fleece, flannels, base layers, cotton, or not cotton, merino wool. Really good stuff. So make sure you have all that stuff. Make sure you're taking it from head to feet. Make sure you're taking care of your body. Make sure your feet you have the ability to keep your feet warm, your hands warm, and your head warm. Those are one of the areas that, I mean, it's easy to put on a pair of pants and a shirt. You got to think about the other areas of your body. Like I talked about vehicle. Have you taken care of your vehicle? Is your antifreeze refreshed? Is all your maintenance done? Are your tires inflated properly? Do you need studded tires? Do you have chains? All those kind of things. Now is the time to do vehicle maintenance. Definitely. Get that oil change. Get that transmission service if you need. Get some extra tires. Maybe all-terrain tires, mud-terrain tires, depending on your terrain, what you need, and how to go about it. There's a lot to this. I get it. Also, all this stuff going on, make sure you have a way to protect yourself. Security-related tools are important. That's stuff we talk about on Patreon. Links in the description below if you want to check that out. Hundreds of videos, $1 a month. Yeah. Make sure you have plenty of food. That's the same thing. Water also. If water stops flowing. If you have well, you live rural, great. People who live rural, obviously, as you can tell when I go out these videos, have a lot less to worry about in this, potentially. Because they have the ability to be more independent and live kind of outside of reliance upon other people. If you live in a city, you got natural gas, you're relying on coming through the pipes to you. You got power that you're relying on coming through the lines to you. You have water that you're relying on from somebody else to come to you. All these vital necessities, you're relying on somebody else to provide for you. If you live rural, like me for example, well, check. Power still comes on the lines, true. Generators. I got multiple generators for backups. Yeah. And a wood stove. And the ability of all this around me to go get wood. So make sure you're preparing for grid down. Sheltering in place is probably your best bet, but depending on your situation, you may want to have a bug out location or maybe a location in another state or a little further away that's not as harsh climate-wise. Just saying. Maybe you want to go to Florida for the winter. I'm kidding. That's one thing. People in Florida don't really have to worry about this. But then again, I don't have to worry about hurricanes. Stuff like that. People in Oklahoma worry about tornadoes. I don't have to worry about tornadoes. But, you know, we all have our things that we have to worry about and prepare for. So be prepared, prep a little every day, and make it a priority. Remember, prepping is living insurance. And make it fun along the way. I love you guys. Have a wonderful day. And blessings to you and yours.